So good morning all of you. Welcome back to the channel. In this video we are going to discuss about the stems and the various modifications found in case of stem. In this particular video we will discuss about the underground modifications, the subaerial modifications and the aerial modifications found in case of stems. The major function of stem, you know, that conduction of water and minerals and to provide support to the plant body. So in addition to that, to perform some other functions, the stems have been modified. So let's start the video. The aerial part of the plant body is known as the shoot. You know it, and this shoot consists of stems, its branches and leaves. The stem is actually the main axis of the shoot system. So what are the characters of stem? It is actually the ascending part of the plant axis. The trichomes, that is the stem hairs, are uni or multicellular. The stem apex is always apical, unlike the roots, which is not apical. The root apex is surrounded by a root cap that is well known to you. But here the stem apex is always apical. It consists of nodes and internodes, and the leaves arise from these nodal regions. Got it? So what are the functions of stems? The main function of stem is the conduction of water, minerals and food materials. So let us study about the various modifications of stem. First come to the underground modification. Under underground modification, you can say that we will study about rhizomes, tuber, bulb and corm. Okay. First come to what is underground modification. In some plants, stems remain under the soil for perennation, vegetative propagation and storage of food. Got it? So underground stem, how can you identify the underground stems from roots? Because both roots are found under the ground, and also here the stems are also found under the ground. That is the reason why we call it as underground stem. So how can you differentiate between these two? Remember, in case of the underground stems, there is always presence of nodes and internodes. Okay, and in addition to that, there is presence of scale leaves and adventitious roots. So these are the two features through which you can distinguish between underground stem and roots. What are those? Presence of nodes and internodes and presence of scale leaves and adventitious roots. Okay, now let us go to the types of underground modification. Those include rhizomes, tubers, balls and corm. First come to rhizome. Well, rhizome is a thick, prostrate, branched with nodes and internodes. You know it is a stem, so it must be having nodes and internodes. It grows horizontally under the soil. Okay. Now these nodes bear scale leaves with buds in their axils. You can see in this picture, here nodes are found, internodes are found, and in the nodal region scale leaves are present. Okay. Buds develop into aerial shoots. So these stems which are remaining under the soil, they give rise to aerial stem through the buds that are present in the axils of scale leaves. Okay. From the lower surface of the nodes, adventitious roots arise. Here you can easily see adventitious roots are formed from the lower surface of the nodes. So what are the examples of your rhizomes? These include gingiva officinale, curcuma domestica. Okay, that is your turmeric. Curcuma domestica is turmeric and gingiva officinale is ginger. Got it? So these are the two examples of rhizome. Now let us come to the tuber. You can see in this diagram, it is a diagram of potato. So potato is an underground modification. Remember it. It is a horizontal underground stem. The growth of the underground branch, that means the underground stem, its growth gets retarded, as a result of which its tips get swollen. Okay, and due to accumulation of food, which we call as your tuber. This tuber contains eyes, which are actually not axillary buds on their surface, which further grow into new plants. So the example is Solanum tuberosum, that is potato. Got it? It is Solanum tuberosum, that is your potato. Now come to the next one, your bulb. So what is a bulb? It is also an underground modification. Here the stem is highly condensed, that is underground stem is highly condensed, consisting of inner fleshy leaves and outer scale leaves. Okay. Now there is presence of a terminal bud at the center of the disc. You can see quite easily in this diagram presence of a central disc. Okay. The fleshy leaves, function of fleshy leaves and scale leaves are totally different. Here the fleshy leaves store food, whereas the scale leaves are protective in function. Okay. Adventitious roots arise from the base. So example is Allium cepa and Allium sativum. Allium cepa is onion, then Allium sativum is garlic. Okay. Now let us see where the roots are developed. Here adventitious roots arise from the base of the underground stem, and the fleshy leaves are there along with the scale leaves. The scale leaves are protective in function and the fleshy leaves are meant for storage of food materials. Got it? Now let us come to the last one, that is the corm. It's the last underground modification that we are going to study. The corm example is Amorphophallus and crocus. Here it is nothing but a condensed rhizome. Rhizome that we had studied before, that when gets condensed, that is called as corm. And the most important thing is that it grows vertically downward direction. It grows in a vertically downward direction. But as far as your rhizome was concerned, it was prostrate, branched with nodes in it, growing horizontally under the soil. But here, when that rhizome is very much condensed and grows in a vertically downward direction, we call it as corm. Okay. Here internodes are very much reduced. Got it? So example is Amorphophallus and crocus. Got it? So this is what the underground modification. Now come to the subaerial modification. Okay, a new one, that is subaerial modification. Here these subaerial modifications are found in case of plants with weak and prostrate stems. Weak and prostrate stems, the plants having weak and prostrate stems, they generally show subaerial modification of stems. Okay. In these plants, adventitious roots and aerial branches, they are found at nodes. Remember, both adventitious roots and aerial branches, they are found at the nodes, which when detached behave as independent plant. So as in subaerial modifications, adventitious roots and aerial branches are found at the nodes. When they get detached, they can independently behave as plant. The subaerial modification helps in vegetative propagation. Okay, the subaerial modification helps in vegetative propagation. Now, subaerial modifications include runner, stolen, sucker, and offset. So these are the four types of subaerial modifications: runner, stolen, sucker, and offset. I think all of you have seen runner. Okay, so what is runner? Here the aerial stems, it creeps horizontally on the surface of the soil, and at the nodes, axillary buds form new aerial shoots and roots are formed at the lower surface. We have already discussed in the definition. In case of subaerial modification, at the node gives rise to your aerial shoots and roots. In case of your subaerial modification, the same thing happens here in case of runner. Okay, so at the nodal region, the aerial shoot is arising, and at the same time the roots are also arising. Got it? So example is synodon and oxalis. All of you have seen it in a field, isn't it? Synodon and oxalis. Now come to next one is stolen. Here it is similar to runner, but it is subterranean in nature. It is produced at the base of the stem under the soil. Okay, it is produced at the base of the stem under the soil. So it gives out branches in different directions with buds at their tips. Gives out branches in different directions with buds at their tips. Now each of these buds develop into a new plant. Okay, example is colocasia and fragaria. Each of these buds develop into new plants. It is colocasia and fragaria. Next one is offset. It actually originates from the axil of leaves. It has thick and short internodes as compared to runner. Okay, and runners have thin and long internodes, but here the offset, they have thick and short internodes. They run parallel to the surface, producing tuft of leaves. Here you can see tuft of leaves are produced. Tuft of leaves, they are producing tuft of leaves at the apex and cluster of adventitious roots just below. Got it? Example is Acornia and Pistia. Example is Acornia and Pistia. So these are the three types of modifications that we have already studied in case of subaerial modification. The last one is sucker. Here it arises underground from the main stem as shown in the picture. This sucker arises underground from the main stem. Initially it grows horizontally in the soil. Here it is, you can see quite easily. Initially it is growing horizontally in the soil and soon grows obliquely upward, forming a leafy shoot. So first of all, we know that it arises underground from the main stem. This is the main stem. It is arising underground. Got it? First it runs under the ground horizontally, then it grows obliquely upward, forming a leafy shoot. Okay, the suckers are much more thicker than the runner. Got it? Example is chrysanthemum, then mentha arvensis. Okay, so chrysanthemum and mentha arvensis. So these are the four types of modifications found in case of subaerial modifications. Okay, now come to aerial modifications. These include phylloclades, cladodes, thorns, bulbils and stem tendril. First come to phylloclade. Here the example is quite clear. Opuntia, you have seen it. So phylloclades are flat green aerial stems which have been modified for storage of photosynthesis. Got it? And these bear modified leaves in form of spines. Now phylloclades act as photosynthetic and storage organ. So you know that these kind of plants, Opuntia, they generally grow in dry conditions or desert conditions, isn't it? So obviously scarcity of water is present. Water is present a very little amount. So in that case, the leaves have been modified into spines. Here the leaves, these are spines. That means leaves are modified into spines. Now who will perform the function of leaves? The stems. Here the stems are performing the function of leaves. Here the stems are called, these are stems. These are stems. These are all stems. They have been modified into flattened greenish structures called phylloclades. So they perform the function of your leaves. They contain chlorophyll, thus they help in photosynthesis. At the same time, they act as a storage organ. Okay. Example is Opuntia. Now come to second one, that is cladode. What are cladodes? These are nothing but phylloclades with one or more internodes. So you know that phylloclade means the stem has been modified into a flattened structure performing the function of photosynthesis and also help in the storage of water. You know that what is phylloclade. Now what are cladodes then? These are nothing but phylloclades with one or two internodes. Okay, so cladodes are also flat leaf-like structures and they help in photosynthesis. Example is asparagus, where there is presence of a single internode, and another example is ruscus, there is presence of two internodes. So basically cladodes are nothing but phylloclades with one or two internodes. Okay. Second aerial modification is thorn. So what is thorn? It is hard, straight, pointed structure arising from axils of leaves. Hard, straight, pointed structure arising from axils of leaves. Now the modified axillary buds which are meant for protecting plants from herbivorous plant. Okay. Now the example is Duranta, citrus, Aegle marmelos, then bougainvillea. So these are the examples where thorns are found. The third one is bulbil. You have heard about bulb. Where you have heard? The bulb is the underground modifications, but bulbil is the aerial modification. Sometimes question arises to differentiate between bulb and bulbil. So bulb is the underground modification, whereas bulbil is the aerial modification. Okay. So what is bulbil? Bulbil is the modified vegetative or floral buds. It arises from the axil of scale or foliage leaves. Okay. Now they grow into a new plant. Bulbils are meant for vegetative propagation. Example is agave, Dioscorea, Lilium bulbifera. These are the examples. These are the plants where bulbils are found. Then last one is stem tendril. Stem tendrils. Where these tendrils are found, they are generally found in plants with weak stems. Okay. So here the axillary buds, instead of forming branches, main purpose of axillary buds is to form branches. Here, instead of forming branches, they form tendrils. So tendrils, these are thin, wiry, leafless, and they are spirally coiled. So what is the function of tendril? Tendril's main function is to help plants in climbing. Okay. Examples: many plants are having tendrils. Some of them include Vitis vinifera, then Passiflora, in mistake I have left A, but it is Passiflora, then cucumber, then pumpkin, then watermelon. So these are the various types of plants where stem tendrils are found. Okay. So what we have studied today? We studied about the various modifications of stem, which include underground, then subaerial, then aerial modification. Under underground modification, we studied about rhizomes, then tubers, then combs, then bulbs, isn't it? And under aerial subaerial modification, we studied about runners, stolons, then your offset, sucker. Then under aerial modification, we studied about stem tendril, bulbil, then phylloclades, cladodes, thorns, etc. Got it? So I hope this video would be helpful to you in understanding the modifications of stem. Thank you.